This time we're going to begin our counseling portion of the presentation. I'd like to introduce our first speaker will be Miss Linda Frost. Ms. Frost is the program director at the Prevention Resource Center, who works out of the offices of the Family Counseling Center. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Linda Frost.
Thank you. Oh boy, this is a terrible, serious topic. It's really serious. However, fortunately, I'm here to give a message of hope. Heroin use can be prevented, treatment is effective, and there is hope for recovery. So there is some good news. We do know there are many things we can do to prevent heroin use. Fortunately, most of us don't use it, but the more we do, the better. And it's great to see all of you here because all of you are learning about heroin. We're all working together. And the more we work together, the more successful our efforts are. However, even with the best prevention efforts, unfortunately, there are no guarantees. People that use heroin come from all walks of life. It could be my son, could be your daughter, could be our neighbors, our friends, our coworkers. So like I said, everybody needs to do our part. There's lots and lots of information at the information table, so I hope you've had a chance to look at that. If not, please do so afterwards. And again, working together makes it more effective. One thing we wanted to bring up is we notice a lot of these overdoses are pretty young people, but unfortunately, substance abuse frequently starts in the early years, during adolescence and young adulthood, any kind of substance abuse. And there's several reasons for that. One is the tremendous developmental changes that young people have to go through. And also their brains don't fully develop up until they're about 24 years old, and that can affect their decision making. So we find young people who are trying very, very hard to do practically anything sometimes to feel like they're fitting in with their peers. They're just starting to make a lot of important decisions away from their parents, getting to be more independent. Those decisions, unfortunately, are often impulsive, not the best decisions for them. Plus, due to their brain development, in part, they love to seek novelty and excitement. They're pleasure seekers. I'm sure you've heard your kids say many times, this is boring. Well, that's because it's the way their brain works. The other thing is, along with all of this that's going on, they have a lot of stress in their life. They have to get into college and decide where to go to college, or if they're not going to go to college, what are they going to do after high school? Or if they are going to go to college, what are they going to major in? And they particularly are vulnerable when there's periods of transition, such as when they're moving from junior high to high school, from high school to college, and so on. So lots of stress. Plus, you add to that, a lot of people don't realize that many mental disorders actually start when kids are young in their teenage years, such as depression. And a lot of people self-medicate, so they turn to drugs to self-medicate. So you take all of these things together, all of this stress, all of this impulsive decision-making, unfortunately, sometimes it's a recipe for disaster. And that's why young people need our help and need our support. It all starts with the family, which is the most important thing in a child's life and a young person's life, because they still need our help as they get through all these transition periods. One thing you can do to make sure all these good things happen in the family that can sometimes seem a lot harder than you think is to try and eat at least 5 dinners a week with your family. No TV, no checking cell phones, no looking at iPads. Just you giving your full and complete attention to your kids and young people, and they like that. Believe it or not, they might roll their eyes. I don't want to have to stop, sending text messages during dinner, but they need that. They need to have you listen to them. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Could be takeout, could be pizza that you ordered, could be something that you nuked in the microwave, as long as you're listening to your kids. So that's really important. And while we're talking about listening and talking, talk to your kids early and often about drugs. There's many things that we say over and over to our kids. Stop bothering your sister, clean your room, make your bed, take out the trash. We say that over and over. We need to say over and over, what are you doing about drugs? Remember, I don't want you using this. This is what I think. What are kids at high school saying? Do you know any kids that use drugs? So that needs to be a topic of conversation you can talk about just as easily as taking out the trash, and it could be even way more important. We all know we have to monitor our kids when they're little. Then they get grown up, and pretty soon they're as tall as we are, and they look like they're all grown up, and they have the keys to their car. However, we still need to monitor them and give them good, positive guidance, even though it's in a different way as they change and grow older. Know where your kids are, know what they're doing, know who they're with, online as well as physically. Schools can do a lot. Hopefully your school has these things in place. Schools need to support academic success for everybody, as well as provide opportunities for positive social development. So work with your school board, your superintendent, your PTA, your PTO, your principal, other parents to make sure that your schools have these things and that you can support your schools and support your kids' academic efforts. These are some opportunities that are available, often supported by the schools. All these things are available in Cole County schools, and I was asked to kind of address some of these a little bit. There are SAD groups at Calvary Lutheran High School, Russellville High School, and Jeff City High School. Here in Jeff City, the SAD group is known, possibly better known as Teens Creating Change. Youth Ambassadors is statewide. Safety Kids and Show Me Players are two things that are sponsored by Council for Drug-Free Youth. All of these groups support positive decision-making. They support good, healthy lifestyles, and these groups are good for the kids that are in them, but they also perform or do things addressing their fellow students. So it affects them, but hopefully affects their fellow students as well. Plus, of course, there's things like Scouts, faith-based groups, things like that, that also promote good decision-making, no drug use, constructive use of time. So all these things are very important. Prevention is good health, both mental and physical. One thing that we need to think about is securing all of our prescription medications. Where's the one place in our homes that we don't monitor anybody? Our kids' friends? The bathroom. We never monitor them there. And where do we keep our medications? The bathroom. So get them out of the bathroom, put them where you know what's happening to them. A good way to get rid of things that you don't need anymore is by participating in a prescription drug take back. The next one's going to be April 28th. Be especially careful if your kids have their own medications. Adderall isn't really related to heroin particularly, but kids are known to sell their Adderall at school, things like that. Also, talking about narcotic medications that are more similar to heroin. If your kid has a sports injury or they have their wisdom teeth taken out, they're liable to be on some pretty strong pain medication, so be careful of that. The community support needs to support good, healthy lifestyles as well. Everybody needs a good, healthy environment, all of us, not just young people. You can support, of course, your law enforcement efforts by participating in things like Crime Watch and Neighborhood Crime Stoppers and Neighborhood Watch. And we hope this isn't the end of your education. Again, there's lots of information at the tables. Check out Jeff City Hope, the website, and I think that's about all I have. Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Kathleen Mims. She's area coordinator for the Missouri Division of Alcohol and Drug Abuse.
Hi there. I'm going to speak with you a little bit about treatment this evening. If you or someone you know is suffering from the grip of heroin addiction, help is available. Once the disease process of addiction is set in, the vast majority of people will need help to overcome that and enter recovery. Can't hear me? Okay, is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay, I'll just stand over here closer to the microphone. The American Society of Addiction Medicine has recently released a consensus definition of addiction. That's a lot of words, but essentially through repeated exposure to substances, both chemical and structural changes occur in the brain that result in an extreme drive to continue using that substance. The changes the substance makes to the brain makes the brain view that substance in a very primal way, as if it were necessary for survival, much like a drive for life-sustaining activities like eating or food, sex, being in the presence of loved ones, only much, much stronger. Simply put, the brain becomes hijacked by the substance of abuse. That said, the brain is a remarkably adaptive organ that has the ability to heal and form new neural pathways, making recovery possible. Once the disease process has set in, the vast majority of people, like I said, will need help to achieve and maintain recovery. This is where substance abuse treatment programs offer help and hope to people suffering from addiction. Handouts with the resources that are on the slide up there are available at the back of in the lobby area. The state-funded programs listed on the left of the slide use a sliding fee scale based on a person's income in order to determine their cost for treatment. So they'll look at what your current income is. If there isn't any income, that scale slides down to zero pay. If you or a loved one you care about needs help with addiction from heroin, I encourage you to contact one of these programs listed on the left. These are the local programs that are in Jefferson City. On the right are further resources for locating treatment programs, and there are also other resources for further information about addiction. Okay, back to heroin. Heroin, like any other opioid, can lead to rapid development of physical tolerance and dependence. People progress from using heroin to feel good, to using heroin essentially to avoid the extreme pain and discomfort that comes from withdrawal from heroin. As tolerance continues to develop, larger and larger quantities of heroin are needed to stave off that withdrawal. Thus, generally the first step in the treatment and recovery process from heroin addiction is detoxification, which can be done in medical settings and or social settings. The point is to provide support and supervision to help people complete a safe withdrawal from heroin. Detoxification from heroin generally takes between 5 and 7 days and will involve some degree of discomfort. Since detoxification alone is not treatment, staff members at our treatment programs work to actively engage people in ongoing therapeutic treatment following their detoxification period. Anyone who has seen or experienced heroin withdrawal knows it is not pretty. Symptoms of withdrawal are very uncomfortable, but not fatal. Withdrawal symptoms usually start within about 12 hours of the last heroin use. Some of the symptoms a person might experience during detoxification and withdrawal include agitation, muscle aches, insomnia, runny nose, sweating, yawning, cramping, diarrhea, goosebumps, chills, nausea, essentially like a really bad case of the flu. Heroin withdrawal symptoms are generally worst between 48 and 72 hours after the last heroin use and generally subside within about a week. In medical settings, medications can be used to ease withdrawal symptoms, but like I said, some degree of discomfort will still be present during that time. Following a detoxification period, people should enter treatment in order to begin their recovery from heroin addiction. Detox alone does not seem to help people to sustain recovery without some other kind of intervention therapeutic. Treatment can be provided on a residential and or outpatient basis. It generally consists of counseling and educational services. When appropriate, family members are encouraged to participate in treatment with their loved ones. Research has shown that outcomes for people with addictions entering treatment are much better when people remain in treatment for at least 3 months, preferably longer. But each person's length of treatment is individually determined by their progress and their individual needs. There's some statistics from fiscal year 2010. As you can see, based on these statistics, heroin can be seen as affecting younger people to a significant degree. This is consistent with reports that we're hearing that cartels are specifically targeting our youth. Historically, we've criminalized drug abuse by incarcerating people with addictions for various drug-related offenses. For nonviolent offenders, treatment is both less expensive and more effective than incarceration. Incarceration does actually the opposite of what we want to accomplish. It tends to turn those nonviolent users into criminals. Treatment, on the other hand, provides people the tools necessary to start and sustain a life in recovery. Even violent offenders deserve treatment. We must recognize the necessity of providing treatment in prisons as well as in outside programs. Without substance abuse education, counseling, and the development of healthy coping skills, these individuals will likely only become more violent. True, very few people who enter treatment are immediately glad they did, but research has shown that people who are mandated into treatment do just as well as those who are not mandated and entering voluntarily. Treatment motivates countless individuals to make lasting and positive changes in their lives and gives them the tools that they need to sustain their recovery. And that's all I have. Thank you. Our next speaker is Brenda Schell. She's the director of the Missouri Recovery Network. It's an advocacy group for recovery in Missouri.
I get to talk about the fun part. I get to talk about recovery, and you're going to hear some stories from 3 wonderful individuals who are going to share their stories with you. Recovery. You've heard the proverb that it takes a whole village to raise a child. Well, it takes an entire community to support and embrace recovery. And when we talk about recovery, a lot of individuals don't have a definition. They don't understand what it is. Many think that it means that you haven't had a drink or a drug for a few days, a few weeks, or a few months. And that's not true. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration defines recovery as a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. Recovery is not defined as abstinence. However, abstinence is a part of recovery. We've all heard of the term a dry drunk. Well, changes need to be made in a person's life to obtain and sustain long-term recovery. And the recovery process is not linear. There's ups, there's downs, there's peaks and valleys, there's sometimes slips. That's part of the recovery process. We need to celebrate the small accomplishments that these individuals have. Recovery is possible and real, and there are 5 dimensions that support a life of long-term recovery. Abstinence, of course, and then health, overall health, learning to manage one's disease and illness, as well as living in a physical and emotionally healthy way, getting plenty of sleep, getting exercise, eating right. That's all part of the process. Home, individuals need a stable and safe place to live. If an individual goes into treatment and comes out of treatment and goes back on the streets and is homeless, they can't maintain their recovery. So a stable and safe home is very important. We all need a purpose in this life. Meaningful daily activities, a meaningful job, volunteerism, going back to school, getting your GED, going for a college education. We all need a purpose. So do the individuals who are fighting this disease of addiction. And then we all need a life within the community. We all need relationships and social networks that provide support, friendship, love, and hope. We all need a support system to help us through life's difficulties. We all have life difficulties. 12-step recovery support groups is just a network of individuals who have shared lived experiences. So let's compare to other support groups. I have several friends who have twins, and you've heard of the Mother of Twins Club. That's a support group, just like AA, NA, Family Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. It's individuals getting together, sharing their lived experiences, their frustrations, their joys. Such as a bereavement support group as well, individuals getting together. So when you think about Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, and it's hush-hush, it's in the basement of a church, it is just a network of individuals that are supporting each other. That's all it is. Recovery pathways. There are many, many pathways to recovery. Medication-assisted treatment. It's medication that helps reduce cravings, and we've got a lot of information and literature in the foyer if you're interested in that. Drug courts. We have drug court individuals here tonight, and we do have drug courts in Cole County. It represents the combined efforts of justice and treatment, and it's a diversion. It's a proven cost-effective method for diverting a nonviolent offender. So an individual who might be headed to prison, this is a diversion. They get to go to a drug court. There's 3 phases, and many individuals complete drug court, and they start their long-term recovery. Also, there's 12-step recovery groups, as we had talked about, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Family Anonymous, and Celebrate Recovery. If any of you are interested, out in the foyer, we have a list of all of the support groups throughout Cole County. There's 6 pages, and they're listed Monday through Saturday. So if anybody's interested, it's also out there. And then, of course, there's treatment that Kathleen had talked about. We need to provide hope and support for those who suffer from an addiction. Many individuals feel helpless. And those individuals are the ones that are not seeking treatment because they feel shamed. We need to help those individuals as a community. It is very hard and impossible to go through recovery alone. Individuals need love and they need encouragement. There's practical ways in which we can help an individual who's on their pathway to recovery. Offering rides to counseling appointments, providing transportation to recovery meetings, providing child care when someone is attending a meeting, helping find employment opportunities, many practical ways, and we all need to think of those and help provide those. And talking about our recovery and the opportunities that recovery holds, how it's changed your life, and how has recovery changed your life and those that you love. You need to talk to anyone and everyone. And these 3 brave individuals tonight are going to be talking about and sharing their stories. Anytime I get the opportunity, I talk about recovery. They can't shut me up, so it's part of it. The community, improving community understanding. We need to understand that addiction is a chronic illness. It is not a moral weakness. Again, addiction is a chronic illness. It is not a moral weakness. And like heart disease or diabetes, a chronic disease is a medical condition for life. But it can be managed, and we all need to remember that. We need to look at reducing the stigma and discrimination. Addiction knows no discrimination. I know many individuals who are in recovery who are corporate executives, doctors, lawyers, teachers here in Cole County. So there is no discrimination. Stigma prevents individuals from seeking treatment. So we need to reduce the stigma so individuals who need help can ask for help and get the help that they need. And also, what you permit, you promote. So when individuals are talking about an individual, maybe your next door neighbor, someone that lives in your community who has an alcohol and or other drug problem, you need to educate them and offer assistance. You need to tell individuals that it's a chronic disease. It is a brain disease, and those individuals need help. We need to treat addiction as a chronic illness. We cannot treat it as an acute illness, like a broken arm. Let's take, for an example, cancer treatment. When you get a diagnosis, you get a treatment plan. You may go to radiation and/or chemotherapy. What if after the initial treatment, you never got any follow-up care? Say you went for 6 or 12 weeks to your radiation, and then your doctor says, bye, I'm not going to see you again. Addiction needs to be treated in the same way as these other chronic conditions. Ongoing treatment and follow-up is essential in individuals to maintaining their recovery. We also need to ensure that recovery pathways are readily accessible. Many of you who are in the field know that wait lists can be anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks long. We really need to work as a system and as a community to shorten those wait lists so individuals can get the help they need when they need it and when they ask for it. We need to promote recovery in the community. We need substance-free community activities, social drug-free networks, support services, and sober housing. I'm not sure, I don't think there's any sober housing here in Cole County. And there's sober housing in Callaway County and in Boone County and all across the state. So as a community, we need to look at that and we need to work on that, because housing is very important and it's one of the dimensions of recovery. So we need to remember that if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. We need to be a part of the solution. I'm here to engage and encourage you to get involved in helping individuals in combating this heroin epidemic that's here in Cole County and across Missouri. We need to come together as a community to pull together to help individuals who need our help. And talking about individuals, I know probably why most of you came here tonight was to hear some personal stories, some testimonies. And I need to tell you that it takes tremendous courage to get up in front of individuals and speak to a large group. So you need to be sure tonight, at the end of the presentation and after the end of questions, that you come up and you pat these individuals on the back and commend them for their courage and their dedication to their recovery and to educating us as well. So we're going to have 3 speakers tonight sharing their stories, and the first one is going to be Heather. She started using drugs in her early teens. Her addiction progressed as time went on. She became homeless and helpless. She is now in recovery and has a balanced life. She is very active in her own recovery and will be going back to school this fall. Help me welcome Heather.